Hello and welcome to another episode of Papa Raptor Does Studio One. Today's tutorial is recording in the virtual jam room. This tutorial is going on a basic assumption that you are recording using a microphone or some kind of an emulation out of an amplifier, and we're not really going to be processing the signal within Studio One other than maybe adding a little compression to it or something of that nature. Now, we're going to work as if we were dealing with a song from the virtual jam room, and there's no better way to do that than to actually work with something from the virtual jam room. So in order to do that, first we have to go into the Blues Guitar Unleashed forum and go to the virtual jam room, where we're going to find a list of tunes that are available. We're going to use the 12-bar blues in C, and so we'll click on that and scroll through it. And we want to, when we're recording, we want to add on after the last recording that was made. And at this point, that appears to be this one. So we need to download it and save it to the computer so that we can put it into Studio One and then record our own solo in addition to it. So the first thing we have to do is click on it, which opens up another window, and in this case starts playing the song. We really don't need to listen to it at this point, so we'll stop it and we'll click on the three buttons to the right, which will open the download window. You click download and that will open a dialog box asking you where you want to save this recording. I've already set this up so that it will save it into today's special folder specifically for this. So there's the file name, we click save, and the process is done. So essentially, we are done with this portion of it. Now, the only thing that's of real importance that we need to remember here is 4 minutes and 27 seconds on this screen right here, which you'll see is where the previous recording ended. So our solo will begin at 4 minutes and 27 seconds. We need to know that in order to make life a little bit easier in finding the track. So from this point, we'll go straight to Studio One, and we'll start with a new song. And I'm going to use the Virtual Jam Room's backing track template that I created. And I don't need this particular track, so I'll remove it. And this gives me the backing track location, and it also gives me the input from my 11 rack, or in your case, it would be an input from a microphone or a line out from your existing amplifier. And from that, we will go over to, and I'll bring this in here, you can either open the file and import a song into this track, or you can simply drag and drop, which is what I plan on doing. Here is the song that we just downloaded, and I'll grab it and I'll drag it up here into place. And I don't need this anymore, so we'll get rid of that. So now we have the track. So we can listen to that, and it should sound pretty much just like what we just heard when we... All right, and it does. Now here's one thing that I do that you may not choose to do, but I find it to be very effective, and it's of value to me, and I think I should show this to you. I set the tempo. I discover the tempo for a backing track. Most backing tracks these days are done either by an individual who emulates or plays all the instruments, or they're done someplace where there's still a click track. And for reasons of editing later on that you'll see, it's pretty handy to know where a measure begins and ends. So we'll start off with this track. And we'll turn off snapping because we're going to, for the beginning, try to locate things and fine-tune them where they need to be. Now, on this track, you may not be able to see it real well, but we have the 4 clicks into it and then the beginning of the track. I'm going to bring the cursor or the pointer over here to the lower right-hand corner of the timeline window. And there's a little equal sign there, which I'll click on, and that allows me to increase the visual of the graphic for the track. It's not changing the volume, it's only literally turning it up so that I can see this. It's not physically changing in any way, shape, or form the way that the track sounds. I'm doing this just strictly so that I can see where that track begins. Now, to find the tempo, I'll take this first click and I'll move it over here to the second bar because I couldn't get it right to the beginning of the first bar. You could conceivably take the beginning off of this and start over there, but this works out well for me. So we've got the count in tracks so that it starts, and we'll play that. Let me zoom out here, and we can play that. Okay, so the song actually begins here. This would be the beginning of the first bar. But you can see that the tempo we have set right now is saying that here would be the beginning of the bar. So that tells me, since the timeline says it's here, and it's actually here, that our timeline is faster than the tune itself. And if you look down here, we'll notice that it's set to 150 beats per minute, and we really don't need 150 beats per minute. Well, it's wrong, flat out. So we'll set that back, and let's say to 110 beats per minute. And then we'll come back up here, and we'll reset the starting point so that this is on the beginning of the second bar again. And now we'll go through it, and we'll see that here it does not quite do the same thing. Let's expand this out a little bit so that you can see it possibly a little bit better. And now the beginning of the song is here, and that's ahead of where the measure would be. So that tells me that our track is actually faster than our tempo timeline would indicate. So we'll try, let's say 120 beats a minute, and we'll set that and listen to that, or see that, I should say. And we'll put that back on the timeline. And that looks to line up. So now let's listen to it. But in order to do that, let's turn on the metronome. Now, on the metronome, I have this currently set up so that it does a clave stick on the first beat, and then beats 2, 3, and 4 are just a simple click. So we'll give that a listen. We'll start from the very beginning over here at bar 1 and click play. Well, that actually looks pretty good. But just to make sure that we're not off a little bit, let's stretch it out, and we'll kick up a few more bars. We'll go out to the 19th bar. And we'll go out here to bar 30. All right, let's see. At bar 30, that is, according to this, we're at 58 seconds, or roughly a minute. Oh, let's see. Let's go here, which puts us right at a minute at bar 31. And if we are right on, the click should be at the very top of the beat. And it is. So we are at 120 beats per minute. Again, this is a step that I choose to use. You don't have to. It's entirely up to you if it's convenient for you. If not, it can be time consuming, but it's one of those things that the more you do it, the faster you will learn how to do it, and it won't take you as long the fifth time as it did the first time. Now, I'll crank the graphics back down to normal on this as well, and we can shrink the track back. So we now have the song in here. We have the tempo set on it. So we need to go in and pick up the recording after the last player. Now, we checked at the last player ends at 4 minutes and 27 seconds, roughly. So let's see where we're at here in the track. We can move around the cursor, and we will have a display down here that tells us what the actual time is, where we're at in the song. Now, if you do not have this in your display, it may be because your display does not go to a full 1080p format. So if you're using a smaller display screen, you may not have the time signature on there. You can change that within Studio One settings. I won't go into that now, but for purposes here, we're going to go up to roughly 4 minutes, 27 seconds. And there we are. It says 4 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, you'll also notice that when we look at this, the levels seem to come down here. And that's another little tip that can put you in the right place. And especially if you choose not to set the tempo to the song. So we can listen to it and see what it says or what it sounds like here. Okay, so that's definitely the ending of the last player. So let's scroll out here a little bit by using the scroll wheel on the mouse so that we can just move out a little bit. And it tells us it's at the 135th measure that he stops. Or let's just put it right here. Okay, that is the point. So essentially he's done there. He's got a little trail off there, and then you can see that the track levels drop back down considerably from there. Now, here's the reason that I like to do the tempo, or here's one of the reasons that I like to do the tempo. This tells us we're at measure 135, and it's a 12-bar blues that we're going to be improvising over. So that tells me that 135, if we go to 147, that's 12 bars. So what we're going to do now, or what I'm going to do now, is create a marker up here in the what's called the loop area. And you'll see that we have what appears to be a pencil shows up here. And we can create a loop, and it highlights. You'll notice that it's highlighting the area. So if we were, say, at 145, 146, 147, that should be 12 bars. Now, again, if you're not using tempo, that doesn't make that much difference. But we can take this on out. Now, let's say I want to do somewhere, I'll do 24 bars, and maybe I might take it out to 36 bars when I do my solo. So, again, little math, 135 to 147 is 12. So if we go to 159, that's 24 bars. And if we go out to 171, that would be 36 bars. And with 69, 70, that should probably be 71 there. We can expand that out. Yes, it is. It's exactly 171. Now, why did I do that? Well, first off, it's a visual cue in case I want to keep an eye on where I'm at when I'm playing. But the second thing is we can use a function in Studio One called punch in, punch out recording. Now, what that will do is if we have a channel that is activated for recording, and I'll activate this channel here at this point for my guitar, and we activate the punch in, punch out, which you will find down here in the transport line. It's down with this group of icons, and this one, it's this one right in the middle, which if you use your imagination, it's a waveform beginning and a waveform ending. But this is the icon, and we'll get a little closer look at it. Once we click that, that gives us the punch in and punch out. Now we'll move back out, and just to show you what I'm talking about here, we can start, and I will click play, or excuse me, I'll click record, and you'll see that the recording will actually start at the point where the loop begins. And you'll notice that down here, we're getting indication that, in fact, it is recording, although we're not recording anything. Now, we'll take that one step further. If we let this go all the way through this loop, when we got to the end of the loop, it would stop recording at this line. So that's why I use it. It's handy. It keeps me from running too long. It's entirely up to you whether you want to use that, or if you want to just go to the beginning of the track and start recording, or if you just want to put your cursor here and start recording. It's entirely up to you. This is what works for me. So we'll get rid of this since there is no guitar here. Now I'm going to do a little fast forward through the magic of telecom and actually go ahead and record my solo here so that you don't have to sit and listen to me do the whole thing, because we're not going to really use it that much in the final product other than showing you how to mix it down. So I'll be right back as soon as I get my guitar, and we'll take it from there. And away we go. And there's our solo. We've got it now recorded, and through the miracle of time-lapse, instant replay, whatever you want to say, we'll be able to mix this in now. Don't have to do a lot with this. Now, the one thing that I will do, because it's already on, it's if it's through an amplifier and speaker and a microphone, so that it is essentially in a room. It's not a dry recording. One of the things that I will do with it, however, is I'll go ahead and I will add a compressor so that it doesn't get lost in the mix. And that's simply coming over here to your browser, selecting effects, and then that gives you a list of everything that's available within your Studio One. And I'm going to use the compressor, and I'll drag and drop it right into the channel strip for my guitar. And from there, we'll come back here to the beginning, or at the beginning of the loop, I should say, and give it a listen. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo the guitar so that we're not listening to the entire track. I'm also going to disable the record because we're not going to really record anything more. And we'll just give it a listen to see where we need to be. I'll kick the compression up just a bit. And that's what we need to do there. So that's all I want to do with it. Now I'm just going to save the track so that if I had a power failure or I did something really stupid, I would be able to come back and get it again. And we'll just save it. And now we're going to go ahead and we will attempt to mix it down. Now, we can do this a couple of ways. There are a couple of things that are available to us when we mix a track. One of which is we'll set up the marker tracks so that we can see that. And if you didn't see that, that's this three little hamburger, as it's referred to by a lot of people in personas. This allows us to set a marker track. And it has, when we get it, it has a start flag at the very beginning on bar 1. And it also has an end flag, which will be at the end of whatever your template says it should be. And I believe in this one, it's either 10 minutes or 15 minutes out. I think it's 10. Well, we'll just find out. We can click right here, and it tells us that it's 13 minutes and 42 seconds. So it's not any standard thing that we normally see. But we can drag this to the end. And I'm going to turn snapping back on because we are on the measure now. But we'll take this out and put it right at the end where it's the same place as the original track. Now, the other thing that we can do instead of this is we can take this loop that we created and we can stretch it out so that it contains the entire song. Either one is perfectly acceptable. So now we're going to mix the track down, and we'll take this off solo because everything that we have set right here would be mixed that way. So we'd end up with total silence except for that 24 bars of guitar track. And we'll set the mix down. We'll tell it we want to export a mix down. And the system asks us where we want to locate it. I'm going to change this. I'm going to set it over so that it's in the same location where all the files for this particular project are located. And we'll call it right here. And we'll call it, we'll just call it mix down for the moment. And we'll change this, make it an MP3 file because that is what we'd use in the forum. And our our sample rate, we'll make it 44.1, which is normal CD quality. And our bit rate will be 256K, which is what I recommend for the virtual jam room bit rate. That way the quality of the recording seems to remain pretty consistent throughout several contributors. Over here we have the export range, and this is where these two items come into play. Right now it says between loop, and that is right here from bar 1 through whatever that bar is. I'd say roughly bar 200 and maybe bar 300, I don't know. But that's where it will record. Now the other thing that we could do, and we did in fact in this case, was I set my starting and end flags at the beginning and end of the song. And that's your second option here. So if we set it between song start end marker, either one of these will work exactly the same way in this particular situation. Now, there may be times that you want to use one or the other. It's entirely up to you. I have a tendency to set them both because it's kind of like, wearing a belt and wearing suspenders at the same time. Now, the two options below that, between each marker and between selected markers, are more when you're working on individual sections of a song and trying to mix out just one portion of a song. And by and large, you will not use those. Now, down here, the options, the output, what we're going to do is we're going to take the options so that the mix down actually comes from the output here. So anything we had on this slider, if it was set at something other than 0 dB, it would be either higher or lower than the reference point. And we're using the main outputs. At this point, there's no other options available because I haven't created any other buses within the system. If for some reason you wanted to create a mono mix, you would select this. We're not going to do that, so we'll leave that unchecked. And there are various reasons. If you're creating something or bouncing tracks down, you might want to bypass effects in the thing. Sometimes if your processor is extremely heavily used, which you won't find in the virtual jam room recordings, but if you were doing a multi-track recording with 80 or 90 tracks, you might want to use real-time processing for some reason. Most likely if you're using an external device as opposed to the internal software and the plugins. Do you want to write the tempo to the audio tracks? That's entirely up to you, but I generally don't. What that would do is that'll actually put a marker on an MP3 that says this was recorded at 120 beats per minute. Again, it doesn't make that much difference, but if you don't have it on there, then it actually can create problems in other workstations and even in Studio One sometimes. Import to track, we're not going to worry about that. Close after export, that just simply closes this particular dialog window down. And the overlap, we're not going to overlap. So we'll just click OK. And the process happens. It's generally a pretty fast process, as you can see, although I even took some of that out of the middle so that you didn't see all of it. At this point, I'm going to do another save because that'll save the changes for the mix out. But essentially, I am done with Studio One for now. So what we have to do at this point is we'll close Studio One, and here's my song mix down because I happen to leave this open behind it. And not because of any great planning, it just worked out that way. Now, what I want to do is I do want to change the title on this. So this is the original that we started with. And I'm going to copy that, the name of the title. I'm just highlighting it so that I can copy the actual name. I'm not copying the file itself. And then I'm going to rename this one, or essentially, hang on just a second, I'll rename the file. And I will paste in what was above, but I'm going to add my initials on here. And we have a file name. Now, from that point, we have the recording done. And all that's left is to put it back on the forum or make it available to the forum. So from there, we'll go back to our web browsers. And let's go to Dropbox. And if you have Dropbox set up, you will usually just log in by opening Dropbox.com. And I'm looking at my home page here now. So I'm going to upload a file. I'll click upload. It wants to know where I want to record or where I want to pull the recording from. I'll tell it I want to go to the G drive from my virtual jam room recording and from my recording on December 9th. And here's the file, 12 bar C major, TZ, RD, CB, PR, and that's it. I'll click open. And we're going to upload it to the VJR and click upload. And you get a time bar across the bottom here telling you how much time you have left. And once that's finished, you can view the details of it. And we're done. Now it shows it right here, so we can share this from this point. And what we're going to do is we want to create a link to this file that we can use and paste into the BGU forum. So we'll click Create Link. It doesn't show you what it is, and it really doesn't matter, but it creates it and it tells you that it was created. We can close it. Now, that has been, I believe it's been posted to, let me just double check here. Let's go back here and okay, we can copy the link. Okay, now it allows viewing. So we've copied the link. Now we can go back into the Blues Guitar Forum and list our post. Here is my contribution. And I didn't specify the time where I was at. So I'll have to come back and edit that in a few minutes. I'll have to go back and look at the recording that I made and see where that happened. Here, let's just do it real quick. We'll open we'll open Studio One again, and the last file should be right there. That's the one we just did, and we can take a look since we have the tempo and everything else. No, I don't want to play it, but we can look at it and see where it ended. And by this, it tells me that I stopped playing at roughly 5 minutes and 18 seconds. No, I don't want to make any more changes to this. And I'm in from, what was the previous time? 4 minutes and 27 seconds through 5 minutes. And what did I say? 17 seconds? I forgot already. And then we'll put the, we'll paste the link. Or I thought we would paste the link. Well, anyhow, we can go back to Dropbox and get the link again. Well, let's find it. Here it is. And we'll copy the link, and we'll come back here into the forum, and we'll paste the link. There we go. And now we've posted a reply. Now, just to check, let's take a listen to it and see that, make sure that the link actually works. And it looks and sounds like it does. All right, so we're good there. And we're done. So I hope that's been informative without being too boring and laborious. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. I will also be doing one of these recordings showing you some effects and things to work with when you're working with a dry recording. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon.